Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about our second standard, affixes and roots. So let's talk a little bit about words today. English vocabulary includes short words like the article a or as well as longer words such as inextricably and denunciation. Very cool words, by the way. Short words such as speak and solve are called base words, and base words cannot be reduced to smaller parts. And those are the words that I think we're most used to using, but other words are made up of parts. So those words can be dissected in order to figure out the meaning. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at the different parts of a word and figuring out how to dissect them. Because if we can figure out what each part means, then those unfamiliar words are going to become familiar to you very quickly. So let's first talk about word parts. And these are what we call roots and affixes. A root is a word that comes from another language, such as Greek or Latin. And an affix is a word part that can be attached to either a root word or a base word to create a new word. Now that may sound a little bit confusing, but once you see what I'm talking about, you're going to really start to bring this together and say, oh, I totally get this, just like we did with most of our standards. But first, we're going to check out a list of words that I think you're going to find pretty cool. So what you have here is a website that I actually just included in that slide, and it's called learnthat.org, and this is a list of all the root words from Greek and Latin descent that you may ever need to know. And you're going to see they're listed by alphabet, and now I may make you a little bit crazy because I'm going to scroll down. There's a lot of them, but I don't want this to freak you out because the root word list that I have here includes roots that you already know. You just don't realize it. How many of you have ever been to a dermatologist, for example? Well, you go to a dermatologist to get your skin treated, right? Well, they're called a dermatologist because derm or derma is a Greek root word meaning skin. And most medical terms are going to be derived from these root words that I'm telling you about. So let's go down and see if we can find some more that are familiar to us. And again, you're going to be really surprised at how many are familiar. Here's one here, extra or extro. That means outside or beyond, and it's from Latin. It's a Latin root word, and that means beyond ordinary, extraordinary. Extraterrestrial, outside of Earth. Extrovert is an outgoing person. So see, you already knew extra or extra, and you can probably think of a ton of words with that root in it that you didn't even know was a root. So let's try and find at least one more that I think you'll all know. Here's one, hydro, H-Y-D-R, or hydro, means liquid or water, and that's derived from the Greek. Hydrate, to add water to. Hydrophobia, an intense fear of water. So you see this word hydro here, hydraulic for all of my future mechanics out there, operated by force created by a liquid. So hydro or hydro, when you see that in a word, you're going to know it has something to do with water. So even though this list looks really huge, and it is, I'm not going to lie to you and say, nah, that ain't no thing, that's not big at all. It's a big list. I'm not going to lie to you. But it's stuff you already know. Now, there are a few you're going to have to figure out on your own, and some you're going to have to get used to. But for the most part, you're using these roots already, so it's nothing to be intimidated by. So let's just take a second to get back to our slides here and take a look at some of those root words that you're probably using already or that may be very important for future careers. I tried to choose as many as I could that would apply to the different careers that you've talked to me about over the last few days. So let's see if I did a good job of that. Here's a list of root words. Again, are going to be pretty familiar to you. And if not, they're going to surprise you because you're going to say, really, I did not know that. I had no idea that this word meant something or this part of a word meant something. So let's start up here with agri, A-G-R-I, meaning field. Well, that makes sense. We all know the word agriculture, right? And doesn't that have to do with field crop production? Agronomy has to do with soil management and field crop production. So you already knew that root, agri. You use it all the time in agriculture. Let's come down here to the word bio. The word bio means life. Well, that's pretty obvious. You study biology, which is the study of life. So anything with bio in it has to do with life. How many of you have ever been to a cardiologist? Did you know that cardio is a root word meaning heart? So anytime you see cardio, cardia in a word, it has to do with the heart. Let's take a look down here. We have magni, M-A-G-N-I, means great or big, magnify, to enlarge or make bigger. That makes sense, doesn't it? Down here we have psycho. We all know what psycho means. It has to do with the mind. So psychology is the study of the mind. And then all the way down the bottom, we have one for, let's see, we have one for Brandon. We have zoo, zoology, the study of animals. Zoo is actually a root word that means the study of animals. It has to do with animals. Okay, so these should not be scary to you. These are things that, again, you're already using. You just didn't know that they had meaning beyond the word that they were being used in. All right? So now let's take a look at affixes. And affixes can be divided into two categories. Prefixes appear at the beginning of words and suffixes appear at the end of words. So some common words are by, anti, inter, in, pre, super, trans, and dis. Now if you use by in the beginning of the word, like biannual, annual means year. So if we put by in front of it, that means every 2 years. Okay, so that's how you use a prefix. You add it to the beginning of a word. Over here we have suffixes and they get added to the end of a word. So we have AL, FY, and these things mean something. If you add AL to the end of the word, it means relating to. If you add ION, an action or process, you've heard people say that they were in a beautification process of a city. You might have heard that on the news. Beautification, the action of making something beautiful. Then you have ism, which is pretty common to you all. It's a state or quality. All right, so again, these are all things that you're familiar with, but the trick is you have to learn them. So check it out. If we look at a Latin root word, tang, T-A-N-G, it's an actual root word. Now we attach things to it. Tang means touch. And now let's take a look at the prefix in, which means not. And I'm going to jump you down here to where it says prefix, root, suffix, and word. And right here underneath you see that we put in, which is the prefix we had up top here. So in, tang. So if you add in, which means not, to tang, and then you add the suffix ible, which means able to, you come up with the word intangible. Now the prefix, again, is in, which means not, root, tang, touch, ible is able to. So we're not, something that's intangible is not touchable. And that's how roots and affixes work together. There are word families. So these roots that you're learning today are not just, they don't belong to just one word. For example, solo, solitary, and solitude. Those all have something in common, S-O-L. You see that? So the root is S-O-L, and you can probably guess that that means alone. Because you know what solitary means, you know what solitude means. Now let's come down here and look at diminish, diminutive, minimum. These things have something in common. In the middle they have min, M-I-N, M-I-N, M-I-N. Now you know minimum means less or least, right? Or to reduce. So min in diminutive, this word must have something to do with reduction or less. And diminish must have something to do with reduction or less because we see M-I-N in each of these words. Okay, and that's what a word family is called. Now let's try this. If you see the word ethnicity, ethnic, ethnographer, you see ETHN is similar in all of them. Now some have ethne and one of them has ethno, but the root there is ETHN, either with an I or an O. We understand what ethnic is. We know we all have an ethnicity, and we know that that has something to do with where we come from. So we would understand all three of these words had to do with the nation or where we come from. How about maniac, maniacal, M-A-N-I, M-A-N-I-A? We see that reoccurring here. So even though we may not know what maniacal means, you could say, well, I see that M-A-N-I-A root, and I know it has something to do with madness. All right, so you would be able to figure that out. And then, of course, we go back to the one we covered a little bit earlier, epidermis and dermatology. You see derm in there, D-E-R-M. And we already learned that that means skin. So anything with the derm root in it is going to have to do with the skin. All right, so that's it. You know the drill, lax soldiers. Salute. Keep them safe. This information is only as good as what you do with it. The only way to learn these roots, prefixes, and suffixes is to practice them. So bookmark that website, okay? I'm going to go over it again with you in class today, but if you can get it from this video, be sure to bookmark it. It's going to come in handy later when we're trying to practice vocabulary and when we're trying to expand our vocabulary. I'll see you in class.